This is the sixth gate of Kammasaka Zen, known as the Hands of the Master. This is Dharma talk number 1, and it's entitled Hands of the Master and the Zen Understanding of Reality. The Zen tradition it's steeped in paradoxes and mysteries that are designed not to confuse, but to help us to peel away the layers of illusion, which will then gradually expose a profound understanding of reality. The sixth gate of Kammasaka Zen, known as the Hands of the Master, represents an advanced layer of insight that draws practitioners beyond intellectual understanding and towards an experiential grasp of life as it truly is. So this gate, it's not just a teaching, it's a fundamental gesture towards, or pointing towards, the nature of existence itself. One that simultaneously holds emptiness and form and reflects the Zen understanding of reality. To fully appreciate this, one must explore Zen's approach to reality, Zen's approach or its treatment of duality, illusion, and also the dynamic interplay between the self and the universe. And through these explorations, practitioners come to understand that the Hands of the Master is not a final destination, but rather it's a continuous unfolding in the path towards liberation. Zen holds that one of the most significant understandings or misunderstandings that humans harbour about reality is the belief in duality. The idea that the self and the external world are somehow separate and discrete entities. In Zen, this perception is considered an illusion, a mirage that has been crafted by the mind. This fundamental misconception is deeply ingrained, largely because it aligns with our sensory experiences and our ego's need for identity and structure. So we view ourselves as independent, observing and controlling beings, moving through a universe filled with distinct, unrelated objects. But Zen philosophy, however, seeks to dismantle this assumption, often referring to the mind's creation as mere dreams or illusions. So the sixth gate invites practitioners to awaken from the dream of separation. And this awakening is not achieved through intellectual reasoning or logical deduction, but rather through direct experience, which Zen refers to as kensho, the moment of seeing into one's true nature. In the Zen view, reality is non-dual, meaning that there is no fundamental separation between the observer and the observed, or the self and the universe. So the hands of the Master, as a symbolic gesture, embodies this realization. It is both an action and an invitation to go beyond one's limited perception and to touch the fabric of reality in its undivided state. In Zen, emptiness is not something to be dreaded. But it is liberating, for it frees us from the attachments that arise from preconceived objects, people, or concepts, as solid, seeing them as solid and unchangeable. So the sixth gate illustrates the dance between emptiness and form. When one sees reality as empty of inherent self, it becomes like the movement of a master's hands, graceful, spontaneous, and uninhibited. The hand does not hold on to the objects that it touches. Instead, it moves with purpose, yet without attachment. And then in this way, emptiness and form are seen not as separate realities, but as two facets of the same truth. So to see reality is to recognize that all forms are empty, and yet all emptiness gives rise to form. As the great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, emptiness is not empty. It is full of everything, full of life and full of existence. So the hand that grasps the ultimate nature of reality does not grasp at all, but rather experiences life as a unknown or unbroken flow where grasping is unnecessary. And this insight frees us as practitioners from suffering that is based in the desire to cling to transient forms. So, if emptiness frees us from attachment, then letting go becomes a natural and integral practice in Zen. Letting go in Zen does not imply detachment in the way that might suggest apathy or disengagement. Instead, it means releasing our grasp on fixed ideas, on our expectations, and on our judgments about the world around us. So we are encouraged to relinquish the constructs that we cling to, including our identities, our beliefs, and maybe even our concepts of enlightenment itself. So the sixth gate represents this act of letting go. There's a story that is often recited in Zen, and it illustrates this concept. A man comes to a river carrying 2 heavy sacks, one in each hand. When he reaches the other side, he understands that he must let go of the sacks to continue his journey unburdened. So the hands of the Master acts in the same way, teaching practitioners to release or let go of the weight of their minds, let go of their mind's constructs, and to experience reality without interference. In Zen practice, letting go is often achieved through meditation, which involves observing our thoughts, our emotions and our sensations without attachment or without identification. So gradually, this practice unveils a dimension of existence that is profoundly quiet and yet intensely vibrant. A reality unburdened by the demands of ego. So the hands of the Master is more than just a metaphor. It's an expression of the Zen Master's ability to respond to reality directly, with total awareness and without hesitation or interference from the mind. And it's this capacity to move with reality that arises from deep training in mindfulness and meditation. And these are practices designed to dissolve the illusory boundary between self and the world. So, experienced practitioners, they can embody this unity, and their actions flow naturally from the moment as their minds are free from egoic distortion. And as one moves through the practice, the teachings of the Sixth Gate, they guide practitioners to understand that reality cannot be known through simply intellectual pursuit alone. Instead, it can only be touched through the presence of the hand, which represents pure awareness, untainted by self-centered thought. Zen teachings often emphasize this point, suggesting that reality or suchness cannot be dissected or understood analytically. So, like the hand's fluid movement, reality is constantly changing and can only be known through direct moment-to-moment engagement. This true understanding, it opens the door to a new vision of reality, one where there is no distinction between the self and the other. And it's in this state of awakened perception that the world appears as it is, a vibrant, interconnected and ever-changing phenomena. So Zen texts often use poetic imagery to describe this experience, referring to it as the moon reflected in the water, or the sound of one hand clapping. These phrases simply emphasize that the beauty of reality is in the immediacy and the unity. So the practice of seeing through the eyes of the Master allows one to perceive every moment as it truly is, without the overlay of personal agendas and desires. And this is why Zen training, it often involves paradoxical questions, known as koans, they're designed to bypass the intellect and to try and engage the practitioner's direct experience. So this gate then is not an intellectual understanding, but rather it's an invitation. It's an invitation to perceive reality without perceptions or preconceptions. When one sees through the Master's eye, reality ceases to be an objective to be observed. Instead, it becomes a continuous, intimate experience in which one participates. Understanding reality through Zen practice, it also sheds light on the roots of suffering and the path to liberation. In traditional Buddhist teachings, suffering arises from attachment, from aversion, and from ignorance, specifically ignorance of the true nature of reality. And then by opening this sixth gate, Zen practitioners see that clinging to any part of existence, whether it be physical objects or mental constructs, it simply leads inevitably to suffering, to discontentment. So this gate, this sixth gate, represents the freedom to move with reality without clinging, like a river flowing around a stone. The sixth gate does not close off suffering, but rather it transforms one's relationship with it. So embracing reality as it is, then suffering no longer seems as something to be avoided or even denied, but it's seen as rather simply a essential part of the human existence. But paradoxically, in accepting suffering as an inseparable part of life, then one can begin to transcend it. And then Zen practitioners begin to find liberation, not by escaping the suffering, but by simply transforming their perception, seeing that suffering in itself is empty, like all phenomena. All phenomena is empty. And the transformative insight, it begins to grant practitioners the freedom to face life without fear or even hesitation. So, the sixth gate of Kammasaka Zen. To conclude, it encapsulates the Zen understanding of reality as an interplay between emptiness and form, separation and unity, suffering and liberation. And it's through the practice of seeing through the Master's eye that we as practitioners come to know reality as it truly is. It's a vast, interconnected flow beyond the limitations of language, beyond the limitations of ego or intellect. And then in learning to let go and to respond to life without attachment, one begins to embody the Master's hands, a symbol of pure awareness, unfettered and free. In this way, Zen offers not only a path to understand reality, but also a path to living fully within it, accepting each moment as it arises, and also as it fades, like a wave returning to the sea. Zen's ultimate teaching is not the transcendence of reality, but the full immersion into it. Experience the eternal dance between emptiness and form. I hope this has been a benefit.